certainly would.
So if you've just
and at this point,
tuned in,
we were hearing
you're looking at visuals coming in from Boston, Massachusetts, where it's a tragic scene there today, as two explosions rocked the Boston Marathon final. And just to get a sense of what's happening there, let's cross to Brooks Spector. Brooks, thank you so much for joining us. When you're looking at this, what's going on through your mind?
Well, what's going on through my mind is a very simple one. Well, a couple of things. One is the horror of it, because this is one of the major amateur sport events in the country, and hundreds of thousands of people end up watching or running or certainly viewing it on television, millions more, and nobody would ever expect something like this. And as far as I can tell already, there are 2 fatalities and dozens of people injured, some very, very seriously. The race has been called off. But this is one of these things where they spend an enormous amount of time and energy organizing it and making sure that things are secure. They even go through the city along the route where this takes place, and they weld shut all the manhole covers on the street. There are tactical police teams on top of tall buildings to get a clear line of sight, make sure everything is fine and under control. But what it does tell you is, no matter what you do, if somebody is determined enough to do something like this, it's still possible. But I think we need to add a footnote to all this, that it's still not clear if it was in fact planted explosions, or at least in one report I've seen, it was speculated that perhaps there were gas main explosions. So it's not clear at this point, certainly, the why or even the how, except that if we watch television, as I'm sure your viewers are doing, the scenes are quite sad and quite horrific.
What do you think the U.S. president's reaction would be, considering that this is the first time bombs have gone off at the marathon?
Well, I think the president's reaction will be very similar to anybody else's. Horror at what's happened, and a determination to deal with anyone who may have caused it. And that's only going to come out in the next while, and we don't know even if someone will claim the responsibility for it, or, as I say, if it was an accidental explosion of considerable force. But certainly if it was done deliberately with malice intent and by agents of some enemy, foreign or domestic for that matter, there's going to be a great deal of effort chasing down the culprits and dealing with them.
After 9/11, of course, the U.S. has been almost on high alert of incidents of this nature. Just paint us a picture of what Americans are feeling and thinking as this tragedy unfolds in front of their eyes.
Well, it's still early days, and the news is only now reaching all the people across the country. But almost certainly, people are going, "Oh no, here it goes again," and that would not be an unreasonable thing for people to think about, as long as it turns out to have been caused by a person or persons or a group. But at this point, none of us should get ahead of ourselves and begin to blame any one group or any one group of individuals or any one individual. It's just still a little too early. I find it extraordinary that these things have happened. There have been the casualties and fatalities, and no one has sent a note to any news service that I've seen yet saying, we are the ones who caused this.
Yeah, give us a sense of how something like this could have actually happened at an event where police security is rather tight, and from the people that we've spoken to and the reports that are coming through, generally the area is cordoned off and there is a sense of high security there. So how exactly can something like this actually happen?
Well, no, there is high security, but remember, there's high security because there are many thousands of people. And you cannot, for example, frisk and pat down and examine with thorough searching of the entire population of a place like the city of Boston. So tens of thousands of people will join to watch the marathon, especially the finish line, which is where this happened. And many people will be participating. Thousands of runners will be there, and there will be many thousands more support people, people who man the water stations, the first aid stations, just the general security of things. So there are lots and lots of people, and I guess what it does say is no matter how good your security is, there's always the possibility of something happening, somebody slipping through, somebody who is intent on causing harm and chaos. There's always that possibility, and even in an event which is as carefully monitored and patrolled and protected as this one is.
Now, give us also a sense of what do you think, considering that the blasts went off at the finish line, where we know that there will be plenty of onlookers and many of the runners would be crossing the finish line, and the fact that there were two explosions. Earlier you were talking about how we're not sure if there was malice involved, etc. But when you think about the scenario, what do you make of it?
Well, you're quite right to point out that the whatever it was that happened at the place where the maximum amount of attention, whether it is individual or media, and therefore worldwide attention, has taken place. The finish line is where people want to watch what's going on, and so all the cameras are there to record, the winners and then the many others who come across. And at the same time, you're quite right also to note that if in fact there were two explosions as opposed to two accidental circumstances. And I keep saying that only because there is nobody stepping forward to claim it, and there is no evidence yet that they were bombs, other than the fact that there were explosions. It's often been the case historically that people will set off one bomb, and that draws people into the scene to deal with first aid and rescue and so forth. And then, of course, there's the second one to cause the maximum amount of harm at that point. So possibly that's the nature of the circumstance. But there are an awful lot of questions, and right now there are very few answers.
Yes, as the city tries to make sense of what's happening and what happened a couple of hours earlier. But do you think that the emergency personnel in Boston would be able to have a handle on the situation, considering that the injured are actually severely injured and there are many that have not been even found? I can just imagine the emergency rooms at the moment. But do you think that they're capable and they're able to handle an emergency of this nature?
Well, if there's any good that comes out of this is that, after all, there are already trained first aid people on the scene because they were there to deal with the runners who have collapsed and perhaps even just bystanders. So, for that matter, there were lots of medical personnel in the immediate vicinity. And Boston is a city which is marvelously endowed with some of the world's best hospitals and trauma units. So, in that sense, the level of casualties that we're talking about, under 50 people in total, is well within the limits of the city of Boston's capabilities to handle effectively and quickly. It's just that in each case, the personal tragedy is going to be extraordinary because people thought of themselves as being part of something which was fun and joyous and exuberant and enthusiastic, and the whole city and the whole country coming together to watch.
Yeah, and for our viewers that have just tuned in and have no idea what the Boston Marathon is about, just fill us in. We do know that many from around the world come and join this event, and it's almost a day. Many take the day off today to come and watch the event as well. But just take us through what this Boston Marathon is all about.
Yeah, well, I did a very quick check, and it started, I think, in 1897, which means it's been running for over 100 years, and it is officially one of the world's 6 major marathons. There's the New York Marathon, the Boston Marathon, the one in Paris, and then there are 3 others I don't remember off the top of my head. And it is certainly one of the premier events of its type, not an Olympics, not a World Cup kind of just a one-day, one event, and runners from all over the world who are marathoners. One of the places they desperately want to show off their skill and ultimately try to get the gold medal is the Boston Marathon, and it winds through a very picturesque city and some of the nearby suburbs, doing its 26 point whatever it is mile course, and it's because it's been running for over 100 years. People have always seen this as one of the apexes of the marathon cycle. And it takes place, of course, at a time of the year. Spring is just coming through in the United States and in many places. So there's this sense of renewal and possibility, and the trees are beginning to flower, and the leaves are coming through, and the weather is usually pleasant. And as a result, people like to participate in it. They like to come from all over the place. I'm sure there are South African runners in it too.
Yeah, we've heard reports suggesting that South Africans have definitely taken part in this race. But this might be early days to talk about this, but what does this mean for the U.S. eventually? I mean, already the country's almost on high alert because of after what happened in 9/11, and every time an explosion happens, there's talks about terrorism, etc. But what happens to the emotions that's going to the U.S. and what happens from today?
Well, I think what it does is it really reminds people about the fragility of the social fabric, and the possibility that a few people with a grudge of whatever type and for whatever purpose can disrupt the most anodyne of public events. And a marathon is one of those things where many people want to watch, because it's all these bodies running past you. It's this great civic sense of participation, and now someone has sullied that too.
Yeah. Earlier you were telling me about emergency in that area. It would be very strong, and that they're able to get a handle on the situation. What about the other personnels? Police, for example, I know they're combing the streets for any other bombs left behind, etc. But do you think they're able to get a sense as well, or get a handle on the situation in the city?
Well, as I say, the one good thing, if there is such a thing in a circumstance like this, is that you have the fullest possible assemblage of police, first aid personnel, crowd control people. You have all these people who are already mobilized to deal with more peaceful circumstances, obviously, but nevertheless big crowd circumstances. And I gather that President Obama has already pledged the full weight of federal resources, that is national resources, to help find out what happened, and if it was the work of individuals, to track them down. So you're going to see an enormous manhunt, and I suspect the immediate area where this took place is going to be combed through in a way which, if your viewers have watched CSI or NCIS, that will be nothing like what happens at the finish line of the Boston Marathon.
Yeah. Well, we're also hearing that the New York Police Department has said that the security was being increased at the hotels and prominent locations in and around New York. What does this mean for other parts of the U.S.?
Well, I think you're going to see that happen in all kinds of ways. It's not going to just be the hotels. It's going to be the larger public gatherings, whether those be sports events. You're going to see it at federal office buildings, people who go to the Capitol building or to some other public governmental facility. You're going to see a lot more security yet again after 9/11. Now that's been a few years now, right? That's been that we're into our 12th year of that. It's not that things got lax. It's just that people got used to opening their briefcase and putting it through the metal detectors and doing all of that. There's going to be a whole new approach to it, perhaps. There's going to be a reminder to be much more careful. I think the place where most people are going to see it almost immediately, though, is going to be at transportation hubs, train stations, and airports.
Yeah, we're also hearing about flight restrictions in and out of Boston, obviously, starting from today. What does this mean for people visiting the U.S., people that are staying there just for the race, etc.? What would it mean for them?
They're going to want to reconfirm their plane reservations for sure, and they're going to want to find out whether they can make those reservations. I mean, I remember back in the days immediately after 9/11. We, in fact, as a family, were in the United States, in between living in an East Asian country and coming to South Africa. And for several days, all we did basically, between just watching the television to see what was happening next, was spend time on the phone trying desperately to find out when we might conceivably get a plane reservation.
Yeah.
As all the planes had been grounded after that event across the country, and then that just ripples all the way through. As each hour ticks by, there are those many more thousands of people whose reservations have now been rolled forward or canceled. And I think this is going to have an enormous impact, at least initially, on people who think they're traveling. And that's unfortunate, but that does tell us just how totally and completely connected the world's transportation grid is. Now, the one thing about the Boston area, too, the downtown city is a fairly tightly compacted city. And so if they throw a net around the city to check on things, it's probably easier to do that than it would be in some other places, because the ways in and out of Boston are are rather fewer than they would be in a place like New York or Los Angeles or Chicago, because the city fronts up on the Massachusetts Bay, and there aren't so very many avenues out of town.
And we're obviously expecting U.S. President Barack Obama to address the media at this point in time, where we don't have many details. Details are rather sketchy. What kind of information is he gathering to address the media right now?
Well, I mean, there's an enormous amount of energy being put on several fronts. One, of course, is dealing with the immediate aftermath, and that's making sure that whatever the Boston city authorities need from the federal government, those resources are brought to bear. There's a considerable amount of energy almost immediately thrown into it from police forces and other law enforcement agencies to try to pin down what may have happened and who may have been responsible for it. And then, of course, they're going to start the more careful, I don't want to use the word cumbersome, but certainly more exacting process of trying to identify unusual travel patterns by people, and electronically searching people who have moved in certain ways in the last couple of days. But I mean, it's so terribly early now. It's very difficult to say precisely what even Barack Obama is going to be able to say when he talks to the media, other than to express a sense of controlled outrage and a commitment that a commitment to people that things aren't as they were before, but the government is there doing whatever it can, and it will do whatever is necessary, kind of thing. And that's going to be something of the tone of the immediate remarks. What they won't do is, of course, in the first couple of minutes, start sending out the posters.
All right, Brooks, we're going to have to leave it there, because we're just going to cross to the Boston press conference, which is expected to happen in just a few minutes. There it is.
Plus help you this afternoon. So we turn it over now to
Thank you, Governor. At 2:50 p.m. today, there were simultaneous explosions that occurred along the route of the Boston Marathon near the finish line. These explosions occurred 50 to 100 yards apart, and each scene resulted in multiple casualties. At this point in time, all of the victims have been removed from the scene. We have sent officers to hospitals to be in touch with family members and possible witnesses. We immediately activated a system of response that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the federal government has in place for these type of incidents. My first two calls were to the Special Agent in charge of the FBI, and to the Colonel of the State Police. Both Rick Delorier and Tim Albans immediately sent resources. We have, at this point in time, determined that there has been a third incident that has occurred. There was an explosion that occurred at the JFK library. So this is very much an ongoing event at this point in time. We are not certain that these incidents are related, but we are treating them as if they are. We're recommending to people that they stay home, that if they're in hotels in the area, that they return to their rooms, and that they don't go anyplace and congregate in large crowds. We want to make sure we completely stabilize the situation. We are setting up 2 telephone numbers that are very important. The first one is for families of victims, people who are trying to locate people. That number is 617-635-4500. That is the mayor's hotline. The second number, if anyone saw anything at this incident, if anybody knows of any information that could lead to the arrest and prosecution of the individual responsible for this, they should call us at 1-800-494-TIPS. That's 1-800-494-TIPS. That line will be staffed up tonight, along with the FBI and the state police. We are working with the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. We have a general here from the Massachusetts National Guard who has assisted in securing the perimeter. And we have additional assets from other agencies who are volunteering to assist us. After this incident occurred, there was certainly a lot of people who were running from the scene. Some of them deposited bags and parcels that they were carrying. Each one of those bags and parcels being treated as a suspicious device at this point in time. We have multiple EOD teams that are checking each one of these bags. But at this point, we have not found another device. The 3 incidents that have occurred, 2 of them occurred simultaneously on Boylston Street, and the third one occurred at JFK about a half hour ago. People should be calm, but they should understand that this is an ongoing event, and they should understand that we need all the information that we can get available to us. Thank you.
Ed, thank you very much. I want to thank the Commissioner. I had a call from the President about half an hour ago who assured us that we would have full cooperation with the FBI, the SAC is here, and the ATF. We were also on the ground. We have, as the Commissioner said, the State Police, the National Guard, fully deployed, and we thank them for their assistance. The Fire Marshal, the City Fire Marshal is here as well. So a lot of coordination in a very fluid situation. We are asking that people stay out of crowds and calmly make their way home, or if they're visiting, back to their hotel. All of the hotels' security will be prioritized at the outset. Again, if people have information, please use those tip lines. It's very, very important that we get as current information as we can as quickly as possible.
Governor, can you talk about the marathon, the significance of what happened today, what you did was wrong previously?
Well, the marathon is a pretty special day around here, as you know. And I started this morning visiting Mayor Medino in the hospital, who was devastated that he couldn't be at the marathon today. He's on his way here now, I think. Am I right? From the hospital, so obviously he is as concerned as the rest of us are about the safety of the people who come for this iconic experience.
Can you address reports that you're looking for a specific kind of truck or a specific kind of person?
No, there is no specific type of truck that we're looking for at this point in time. We are looking for any information that people have as to what they saw or might have heard at the site of the explosion or coming and going. We're investigating all leads right now.
What's the latest death and injury toll?
We don't have the number of casualties at this point in time. This is very early in this investigation. We wanted to get out here and give you as much information as we had. but we cannot tell you exactly how many people.
Commissioner, a lot of us heard a third explosion about an hour or so ago. Then there was a rumor that that was a controlled explosion. Do you know what that was?
There was a controlled explosion on Boylston Street, but there was a third explosion at the JFK Library that we believe is related.
And that explosion had a device that was found, or what's the history of that?
That was not, as I explained earlier, there are a number of parcels that have been dropped by people on the parade route, on the race route. Anything that's out there right now is being viewed as a suspicious device, and we are clearing each one of those items with an EOD team. They may be blowing things up over the course of the next few hours, but at this point in time, we have not found another device on Boylston Street.
Has there been any warnings leading up to this, any threats that something like this might happen?
None. We talk about the threat picture all the time as we lead up to this particular event, and we have no information that this was going to happen.
Commissioner, can you tell us what happened at JFK? Just walk us through the timeline.
It's literally just unfolding. I don't have specifics. There was an
There was a fire
explosion.
there earlier. Is that
Sorry?
around 3 o'clock? There was a fire there. So does this happen after that? Or?
We got reports after 3 o'clock that there was an explosion.
Commissioner, any injuries at the JFK Library?
None that we know.
Are you describing this as a terrorist attack right now? Governor Patrick said it was an attack, but would you say this is a terrorist attack?
We're not being definitive on this right now, but you can reach your own conclusions based upon what happened.
Any
responsibility contact the police trying to claim responsibility for this?
At this point in time, no. Every asset of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the federal government is either here or coming here. As the governor said, the president has talked directly to the mayor as well as the governor, and I had a personal conversation with the director of the FBI who pledged any help that we needed. So we are stabilizing the situation at this point in time, but people should be cautious. That's all. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. We're going to try to do a next briefing at 7 o'clock, so it'll be 2 hours from now. So it's 7 o'clock next briefing. Again, the way to come in and out is to my left, your right. Is going to be the way to enter.
All right, so we've just heard from the Boston Police Commissioner that 2 explosions went off at the finish line of the Boston Marathon, and another explosion happened at the JFK Library. And he says this is an ongoing event, and 2 more explosive devices were found and are being dismantled in Boston today. So at this point in time, there are multiple casualties. Police are talking to witnesses at emergency rooms, as well as people that took part in the race. And they're asking people to go home calmly, not to congregate. And they're trying to stabilize the situation.
Wow.
And in 2 hours' time, there will be another briefing just to recap and see where the police are at the moment.